almost Chief. There now. Okay. Okay, everyone's in, Chief.
Okay, everyone's on. Okay. All right, welcome everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Hello.
Hi, Chief.
Yes.
Hi,
They're talking
Chief.
to
Yes.
headphones, you know, wearing or something?
Oh yeah, because we.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna ask questions of anyone. I'm gonna have to hear them.
Is
Okay.
this
Hopefully it'll all go well. Okay, so I can't hear you guys speaking, so if responding to my welcome, um, good. All right, it's been a while. And just even getting this started, there are things that are kind of trying to be pesky. And that's why we're starting a few minutes late, are we?
Yes, Chief.
Yeah. So anyway, this is primarily question and answer. Um, Probably the next couple of forms will have a similar format where I basically answer questions that you guys have sent in. So getting started now, we're going to start with question one. And you can just read that out for me.
As the energy on Dunya continues to increase, what mental or physical effects or purge symptoms might individuals experience?
Okay, with what's going on, you can call it a rise in frequency that's been going on for the last several years on Dunia. The rise in frequency just makes it harder and harder as time goes on for those and things that vibrate densely to actually be in the matrix or to even exist. So some of the things you might notice with people, a certain level of forgetfulness, and you find that there are people who have that going on anyway, but it ramps up more. People being forgetful, or some of the decisions that they're making are even less logical than they were before. Doing things that may would you consider openly sabotage a person. The number of I would say I the idea of attachments and what people consider attachments to be, that word can be kind of limiting. So everyone or most people believe that they're a singular consciousness themselves. And a lot of times they just really relate their consciousness to the avatar, their vehicle that they're in, as though they're one and the same. And the reality of the matter is that you're not one and the same. The human is made up of various consciousness. And I used to call them like, oh, sausage pieces, because there's so many different fragments that can be in a person's energy. And those fragments, depending on the intensity of them, how much energy they have, can come to the surface and take over at times. But the things are changing quite a bit. And it's, get my thoughts together. It's been a little while, obviously, since I've done this. Okay, I'll go a little easier route, having to do with, in other words, that people are full of multiple consciousness. But the order has to do with the ones that have the most intensity tend to control the behavior of the avatar or control your behavior. So you may have a dominant personality in there, and it can be a number of things. It can be very fiery. It can be someone who seems to be quite calm or whatever, but they can also one day they're very different from what than how they usually are. So you can tell that there are maybe a number of consciousness taking turns at the helm. In other words, driving a vehicle has to do with how extreme a person's personality can change. So there's also triggers that will trigger certain personalities to come up to deal with certain things, certain issues, certain people. In other words, if you're walking around with your collection, your bus full of consciousness or whatever, you can even liken it to like an apartment building full of people. And each of those people are part of your consciousness. Some are very like low key, some are very noisy and very prominent. So with that said, I'm going to move into the space having to do with what's happening to those consciousness while the frequency is rising. So what happens also is that the energy can push certain attachments, certain dense attachments out of your avatar, depending on the frequency level. And those individuals, will be pulled to a certain location that I don't feel I need to share with anyone. And they're no longer there. So I would say someone that had the characteristics of three individuals, all of a sudden they're just having, two characteristics left, and so on and so forth. So even if those two are left, then the weaker ones start to try to take their turn at the helm. And that's where you will find some individuals who are usually pretty on with how they deal with their day, as long as you can be in the matrix. But for some reason, they're way off. It's like their focus is off, how they do things is off. And in some cases, they even seem like a different person. This type of thing has to do with a rise in frequency. Now, with that said, there's always been situations within the matrix where personalities will pop up and people will behave differently, but this is a lot more extreme. It's a lot more noticeable. And with that, to answer that question, that literally, I would say, kind of in a nutshell, what has been happening with individuals. So I might have something else to add to it a little bit later. I'm trying to flow with what's going on here. We have things that have been trying to interfere with me restarting the forum, but that's okay. They're not doing so well with preventing this. But I'm going to move on to the next question and see if I can get a flow going on. So I'm going to go to the next question, but I may just bounce back to question one if something comes up. So don't be surprised. All right. Question number two.
I have seen a few videos of people disappearing. What is happening there?
Okay, with that has to do with what, well, I'd say the Gen Pop is calling a glitch in the matrix. But the frequency is what's causing more of a major glitch. A lot of times, if there were situations like, let's say 20 years ago, where someone was looking at someone and then they all of a sudden they disappear, that was something that's purposeful. That was something that the density wanted to do, wanted that particular person to experience, or that aspect of the person to experience. So there's a lot I've known over the years. If someone were to see something that the system deems as impossible, then that person would be ridiculed. Even just to what is being seen now on the regular, i.e., starcraft, spaceships, or what do you want to call them. Now there's so many of them, they're kind of giving it up by trying to make people feel like they're crazy for seeing them. Now, the craft that you're seeing these days, and I think there's a question that someone may have asked that's down the line, having to do with whether those crafts belong to light beings or density. For me, it's pretty simple. What's going on now in the crafts we're seeing now belong to light beings, or what I would coin, they are directly connected to Supreme Universe. In other words, the source of Supreme Consciousness, who is the source of the true universe. So what this is like the matrix here is barely the head of a pin, the tip of a pin in the universe. The universe is extremely expansive, unlimited. This existed, and I might have covered before, matrix existed within a cloaking, a grid to try to hide themselves from the rest of the universe. Okay. Now, I don't know if I would, can we break and do so that I can get some interaction with the audience?
Sure, Chief.
Okay, guys, we're gonna take a break because I'd like to get some input from you guys. So if that's why, because I'm getting feedback.
Yeah. But we can change it. We can take a break.
Okay, we're gonna take about what, 2 or 3 minute break.
Sure.
Okay, we're gonna take about a 2 or 3 minute break. Just hang in there so that I can actually because this is a little awkward when I can't interact with you guys like I used to interact with you during forums. Okay, so let's try that. Just gonna sit and wait. Or stand and wait.
So
No, but I need to be able to hear, if I'm.
Is it not on yet? Oh, no, no, no. Mm, I have to
We can see you every now and then.
Yeah, it's been popping in and out here too. It just has to do with the resistance from the density. They're pretty desperate these days. I'll override it. They can't last that long. They don't have that much energy. But it's good. I can hear you. Okay, you guys are gonna let me know when it's go time or
you're blinking in and out.
blinking in.
So everyone can see you sometimes.
Oh,
No.
yes, you're back.
I'm back.
Yes.
Okay.
Is Chief sideways?
Back.
Yes, he's
Talk
sideways.
to me.
Sideways.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, let me do another one.
mm,
Behave yourselves.
What if you switch it? You switch it?
Okay, so you now look a little bit more.
it's just, yes.
All
Oh,
right, am I back?
yes, Chief.
How am I right this time?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
Chief.
kind of low.
Yes.
I can barely hear you. But okay. Are you still trying to get the sound or something? Or?
Yes, try to increase the volume.
Okay.
Can we?
Yeah, I mean, a minute ago, the volume was just fine.
Yeah.
But I was sideways.
Yes.
Okay, can someone speak?
Hello.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right. The form's going to be edited, from here on out. Also, because there are individuals who will just wait and they'll just watch the whole forum without donations or anything like that. And I think I'm going to basically, all of you who are on right now, you're obviously getting the full form. You're getting all the information that I'm giving. And I'm going to edit out some information for those so that individuals who are not contributing to the movement won't get the whole story. And this, we're recording this as I'm speaking, right? Just let it be known that's one of the reasons I'm doing this. Because also over the last several years, I've run into situations where there's obviously individuals who've been watching my forums and they're using some of my terminology, but they're using it to try to hype themselves up. And most of the time, they don't even know what they're talking about. They don't even know the proper use of the terms or what I'm talking about. So just to prevent that from happening so much, I am going to be editing the forums, and we're going to have to edit this stuff, the earlier part out anyway, where I stop, and you don't need to see images of me sideways and all that stuff. So anyway, we're going to go back to the question. I think I was talking about the question having to do with the craft in the sky, and I think I did answer that. That what you see in the sky and what's going on is all connected to light beings, and I mean full consciousness light beings, because everyone here is fragmented. So full consciousness light beings, they think in a very radial way. They see a much bigger picture than the people who density also calls the food can see, and that's by choice. In other words, not by choice of people or the food, but by choice of density. Because they don't want anyone to be clever enough to figure out that they're being bamboozled and that they're being played with. Or the whole concept of you being important. I am important, the world should know that I exist and I am important. When you're looking at a world of billions and billions of individuals, and they decide to choose a little pinpoint here, a little pinpoint there, of people who are celebrities all over the planet. If you have like 10,000 celebrities or whatever, or sports figures and all these individuals and whatever, they're not even a fraction of all of the food that's out there. All the other people who really are, have no importance in the eyes of the Matrix. So if you're a celebrity, you're usually someone that the Matrix supports, because they can get your focus. They can get the essence, because in the very end of everything, it boils down to energy, essence. Density ran on essence. And they would trick the humans or the fragment of consciousness into thinking that, oh, if I give you some things like money, cars, houses, and bogus vacations and so on and so forth, that's worthwhile, that's worth working for. But in the end, when you're through with this expression, you end up with nothing. If anything, you also end up with less essence. The density cannot create essence, it can only take essence. So where did the essence come from? It came from outside. It's a very sneaky way of pulling individuals in. If a full consciousness understood what was going on here, there would be no people here participating in the matrix. So the whole concept, and I think I've covered this before in the past, a few years ago, having to do with the whole concept of lying and this deception and all these other very negative things, these are all creations of density. And I have used an individual's name who literally told me what his name was when I was literally deleting him, is Yin of Yin. And it was all to feed Yin of Yin. Yin of Yin created a pyramid, he's at the very top. So the older ones, the first ones that he was able to confuse and bamboozle and trick into following him were on the next level, and the levels below that, just like a pyramid, all the way to the bottom were the grunts who know nothing about anything that's going on at the top. To him, everybody is expendable. Every consciousness to him is expendable. Things that he did to consciousness in the sense of fragmentation is really some very awful stuff. And just being here in the matrix, you see stories of awful things going on all the time. They want that kind of energy to be part of your existence here because it would give them a constant flow of essence. So if you're constantly stressing about if as even as female to males, but you know, with women, there's if you have to live by yourself, then there's a certain bit of stress there because things can be very dangerous for single females. Or parental units who are concerned about you living by yourself because they know what the matrix is capable of. So there's always this release of energy, release of essence out into the atmosphere that's been gathered up and then will send right up the pyramid to Yemia. So I would say the last 4 years, their ability to, I'd say, get sustenance from all that has gone down to nothing. And that has to do with universal supreme consciousness intent. Everything comes from supreme consciousness. Therefore, supreme consciousness realizing that this exists in the way that it exists starts to systematically shut down the ability of density to survive in a universe that is definitely not designed for their existence. So if you're looking at what's going on, Dunya as a consciousness, which is another, well, you know, everything is criminal here, criminal, I would say, that goes on in the Matrix anyway. That all of the volcanoes that, you know, and the earthquakes and things like that that have been going on for the last 4, almost 5 years now, has to do with something I said literally about 5 years ago. Dunya rising up with the help of light beings from the supreme universe. Now, as I speak, I'm empathing someone with extreme nervousness, and I don't think it's any of you guys in the audience. And I don't know if my voice sound shaky. Someone's in. Did you hear that? That's yeah, that's one of them. That kind of grunting noise is their language. I can actually get them to translate and speak it in a language that you all will understand. I can have them speak it in English. Okay. All right. Who's grunting? Hmm? What's your problem?
Forum.
You don't like the forum?
No.
None of you like the forum?
No.
Because the forum is effective.
Yeah.
Why are you even trying anymore?
I'm programmed.
You're hardwired.
Yeah.
You know about the deal.
I've heard. Could I have it, please?
I'll give you a roll of what it is. How about that? That is a roll of the deal. Here's a roll of what happens to those who don't take the deal. But you already asked for the deal.
Yes, please.
What can you do for me?
I can make it run smoother.
Oh, yeah?
Technology.
Okay. So was it your nervousness I was picking up? I know it's not just you.
Well, there's a group of us.
Yeah, it's a group of we. You're going to, well, let's see. All right, we already know where they are now, for sure. Guess I can bounce around a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
Like little vagabonds. We think they're like a little guerrilla force, you know, to battle the light.
Yeah.
You're losing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You lose members all the time. Yeah. Is there any organization in the matrix that's running smoothly anymore?
Not really.
Yeah. It didn't run super smoothly before. You guys had issues,
Not like this.
but nothing, yeah, nothing like this. Yeah. So I will, and this is something that I didn't really plan to do during the forum, but there's a number of you who have regular sessions who are familiar with this whole thing having to do with the deal. And a lot of you have been doing really, really well with their empathing and the density who come for the deal, who are basically making an exodus as if you could say, from the matrix, they will come through you guys and they will ask me for the deal during sessions. All right, so are you ready for the deal?
Yes.
Containing? Sending you to the room for the deal. You all work for me now. How about that? So some of the examples of what's going on with these guys and they're trying to interfere with things had to do with what was going on, the glitching that was going on with the video and the sound in the beginning. That was them. And so if I hit them a certain way, then they'll straighten certain things out. Certain ones who have a certain position amongst the density, when I get hold of them, they have the hair more clout than your grunts density. They'll go, and then all of a sudden you can hear me and you can see me, and I'm not sideways on the camera or anything like that. So with this individual, I said, and I feel a little less of that nervous energy. Okay, I'm going to talk to the ones that are remaining. I can still feel you, you know. Yeah.
Try to hide.
You can't hide anymore. You can't hide. You're very much aware that lightnings have been replacing the dense grid for a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why you're trying to hide. There's nowhere for you to hide. Really, literally. We have an order as to how we deal with you guys. When we grab you, when we send you into punishment, or even when we open it up for you to take the deal. Okay? How many of you guys are there? Give me a good number.
Hundreds.
Hundreds. Containing? All right. I'm going to share rotes with these individuals, rotes of what the deal is, and rote of what happens to those who don't take the deal.
Deal, please.
Yeah.
We'll take the deal.
You all take the deal. Yeah, you're not as dumb as you seem. Okay, containing you all again. Sending to the room for the deal. Yeah, that feels better. You all work for me now. Hey. And only light beings and I will tell you what to do from here on. Okay. Now I think, well, this is how forms work with me anyway. I'll start in one location and the next thing I'm off to a totally different location. But at this point, I'm going to bring it back into the question and answer. So I'm going to go for question number 3, see what we have there.
Are most of the ships we are seeing in the sky light being ships?
Oh, okay. Well, I already answered
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to go. Well, actually, I'm getting a lot of visuals going on right now. There's certain things that you can see on social media, and there used to be a lot of debunkers on social media having to do with these particular topics. And you may notice that they've dwindled over the last several years. They're not so energetically trying to tell you that, it's blue beam or, it's a drone. Well, the drone thing was like last year. It's all a drone. Yeah, drones the size of an SUV. Yeah, yeah. Well, the military can do it. People are idiots. They're not smart enough to create anything. Whatever was created on this planet was created by density. So Oppenheimer, he created this. Density created it, and they fed it into him because was just a little robot. Like most of you are little flesh robots, little flesh androids. So you sit there and think you're so freaking smart, you're not that smart. And it's understandable. You've been watered down to this very linear, looking through a keyhole type people, individuals. Then they feed something up their bum and tell you, this makes you a genius. Check it out. Hey, you can invent the atomic bomb. You're a genius. Are you freaking serious? I create something that can destroy everything, including myself. Boy, aren't I a great genius. You get it? There are no real geniuses here. And if you think you're a genius, think again. Also, the timeline for existence on Dunya is way off. What they do when they fragment you, they fragment out logic also. And they replace it with some kind of skewed thing, some little limited thing that tells you something that is illogical is logical. They create deities. And that's the question that's coming up. So I'm not going to answer that one right now. I'm going to wait till later for that one. That has to do with the deity issue. So if anyone's strolling around thinking they're all that and they're all important, whatever, they don't control anything. You think that someone who's a celebrity controls their world? They don't control their world. There's not one of you that controls anything in the matrix. You can have all the resources that you think you have all the money, you can be the 1%. Yes, the 1% controls, they control nothing, absolutely nothing. Because they can't escape this illusion. That's control. If you can get out of this shit, that's control. So they get you to accept, oh, okay, here's a pile of dung here, you know, and here's a bigger pile of dung. Well, if you have enough clout, you can exist in the small pile of dung. See, you don't have to look at a big mountain of dung, but you're still in the crap. Your life is still crappy. Why are there so many unhappy so-called wealthy people? Whining, complaining, hateful. That's your suffering also. Disdain for those little ones who are trying to get a piece of your action, kissing up to you. You know, I wish I could trust these individuals, but I think they're after my stuff. They want a piece of my action. They think that they know me, rub elbows with me, that they can be lifted up to my level. I've talked about this in the past, that what the system calls Satanism, there's various names for it all over Dunya, but we can use Satanism. Usually if you have something that others look at and they look up and they say, oh, wow, it'd be wonderful to have that kind of lifestyle, whatever, you better be sure that these guys have some kind of relationship with what you would call the satanic. And who controls the satanic? Density. They have rituals to try to bring someone over from the other side, some reptilian from the other side, to give us luck and money and control and all this other kind of stuff. They say, yeah, you know, I'll come over. Why don't you sacrifice one of those little ones for me? Just to show your, you know, your faith in density. And then they just look at each other, look at these idiots. They're about to kill that kid, and they don't really need to kill the kid, really. But also, yeah, they don't mind it because there's a certain essence that comes from people being terrorized while they're being murdered. They play with it. They've been playing with you for a long, long time. So I'm going to go to another question. Well, before I get way off Of course, here. So we're just going to go to, was it question 4 more? Or
Yes.
Okay.
What are some different jobs that density has on the other side?
Oh, well, that one is simple in a sense, but not as simple. In other words, all these little BS jobs that people have here in the matrix that cause difficulty and misery for so-called just regular people, okey doke folks. You know, you have to have this thing going if you want to survive. You have to have a so-called good job if you want to live in a place where there's not people just running around trying to shank you or rob you 24/7. The universe is not about that. Never has been. I would hazard to say that maybe the Matrix is just a bad experiment that has run its course, and Supreme Universe realizes that this is so out of balance, it should not exist. And I agree. This doesn't need to exist. But it's just so funny to just throw all this stuff at you. And then people pretend like they have their shit together when they know they don't. I don't care how much resources you have, how much glamour you think you have, how much notoriety you think you have. There's a lot of folks with notoriety who ends up hating the people who look up to them. Because a lot of times these folks are pesky, and the fragments have a tendency, a lot of them, to be very selfish. You know, I mean, I've read stories of individuals who see someone who's a celebrity, and then they bowl over, people in front of them and children because I got to get that person's autograph. They don't care about anyone else. You know, there's a lot of that goes on here. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that people who want to be celebrities end up having to deal with. But again, as I said, the satanic thing, none of these guys control anything. If they control anything, it's just like this little space that they think they control, but you control nothing. Because if density wants whatever you have, they'll just take it. Because they believe they own you. So what was the fourth one? Fourth question?
That was the different jobs that.
Different jobs. Okay. Yeah. So in other words, I would say things having to do with institutions, banking, just general institutions, things where there's a hierarchy, where there's always people on the bottom. Those come from density. All the institutions you see come from density. And then they tell you you need this. Literally, what we're dealing with is like a game of Monopoly from hell. And Monopoly shouldn't exist either, to tell the truth. But you're all playing a game of Monopoly. You got your Monopoly money, you got your little Monopoly icons, your little houses and your little properties and stuff. And then you're like, vying for who's going to take certain properties, and it's a luck of the draw. You throw a dice. Now, who's to say that density doesn't control how the dice roll, how the die rolls? Of course they control how the die rolls. I used to play a game when I was a kid. There was always somebody, usually me, who for some reason could never really win at that game. My throws are always funky, or I'll end up on somebody's property. There's always someone that seemed like was more favored by the game than others. First throw, Park Place. Now I can charge rent for those who all land on Park Place. And guess what? A lot of people landed on those particular squares and then had to give up more of their Monopoly money. So I call this Monopoly game because once you're outside of the matrix, your money and the resources don't mean anything. You might as well just be out there and, Once they decide to kick you out of the game or whatever, then you're standing out there naked with nothing. And all those that, in the game you're looking down on, they're looking at you and said, you're in the same boat that we're in. No. The game ran because people believed in it. And it's not really your fault. It's just how you've been conditioned and programmed. And people should understand what conditioning is. They do it all the time. They do it to so-called animals. Condition an animal to follow orders, or sometimes using pain, withholding food, water, or whatever, to get individuals to break and do what the system wants them to do. So what's going on right now that this is all coming down, it's crashing. Now, as far as like any due date as to what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, it's happening now. You can see it just gradually closing in. Density is feeling very claustrophobic at this particular point in time. And when they even try to attack, they don't really literally try to attack me personally anymore, but they would try to attack individuals around me or try to attack basically like trying to attack the farm. How you weaken the matrix even more has to do with the amount of information that you can handle that comes from outside of the matrix. So anyone who's looking at this and say, oh, it's just a bunch of crazy stuff, that's your density talking. It's just like a density hand puppet. You're gonna tell me, oh, that's crazy. What do you know? Can you fix your situation? Hmm? Can you get yourself out of this? Why are you so miserable? Don't tell me you're not. I've run into a whole lot of lying fragments, people here. So what was your childhood? Oh, I had a wonderful childhood. And I look at you, I say, I can read you. You didn't have a wonderful childhood. Where did you have a childhood? What, some other universe, some other planet? And every single time they'd roll back because I would see through their facade. Say, well, actually, my mom was psychotic. My dad was an alcoholic. And, I would get bullied at school. And I just wanted you to think more highly of me, like someone who had a good life. No one has a good life here. It's all a struggle. I'm here because I have a job to do, and I chose to do this job. So I said, well, why are you still here? That's why I'm here. And at this point, I'm actually enjoying it. It doesn't bother me to fight with density, even when they were stronger. It was interesting. It's like I discovered something else. Oh my goodness! Somebody just hit me in the arm because they're all upset because I ripped them out of somebody. I said, "Oh wow, okay. Well, this is real. Good, good. You're verifying what I assumed is real anyway. Now it's my turn to hit you." That's why they don't try to hit me anymore. They can't play this game with me. I'm not a fragment. If anyone wants to challenge who I am, bring it. Bring it. I've been saying this for years. You want to challenge me? Bring it. Admit you don't know anything. My followers know more than you'll ever know. And they barely know a fraction of what I know. So where are we as far as time?
4:51.
51. Okay, we're not doing too badly. So anyone in the audience have anything that they want to ask having to do with any of the things that I've said? You can go ahead and ask your question, or we'll move on to the next question. Okay. All right. We all seem to be mesmerized. So we're going to go to the next question.
Do you want me to read it or the participant to read it?
Okay, well, whose question is it?
Nellie's.
Nellie? Nellie, you hear me? Nellie?
Yes, Chief, I'm here.
Okay. Now, you said the question having to do with, I think it was religion and deities and things of that sort. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes, let me grab it.
Okay. Because you mentioned something having to do with yin of yin, and most people don't know who in the hell yin of yin is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So basically the question about the deities was now that density has basically like lost its power, if that's a better way to rephrase it. I've been
Yeah.
noticing a lot on social media, like, people openly talking more about spirituality and things like that. And now I've noticed this trend where people are openly talking about like, Santeria and all these deities and people that like they're children of, like, for example, they're the word Orisha and like Oshun comes up and like, oh, this celebrity walks with this person, this celebrity was initiated by this person, or this celebrity does this with this person, and like it's just so much. So for me, the question is, have they not realized that their deities have no more power since like the whole thing is falling apart?
Well, I think someone asked a question about denial, did they? In one of the questions? Because what you're dealing with is a denial. People know as much as the system allows them to know. Now, your higher consciousness can connect with something higher, except it's been weakened to the point where it's kind of like gasping is on life support or something. So for instance, an individual has decides they're going to do something that is not the best idea. I think I'm going to try shooting up heroin or something like that. And there's a party that I don't think that's a good idea. I said, well, everyone else says it's cool that I'm around, and so they override whatever little remaining logic that their higher consciousness has. And then they end up doing exactly what density wants them to do. They create all these problems for themselves and those around them because, in the end, again, like I said, it's all about essence. It's all about feeding the monster. It's all about feeding it of the end. So people who think that all these different deities and so on and so forth, because I've went through years just researching, looking at certain religious belief systems, and there's a whole bunch of them that have all these deities. Rinpoche's, even like with the where you were talking about the OSHA, like I see.
Oshun, and like they're saying that I guess the whoever picks the person for the deity is like called, like they have to go through like something called like Orisha or something like that.
Mhm. Okay, so when they do that, they're looking for a better life, would you say?
Yes, and it's almost like what I've observed is they're starting to like almost look at the deities as they look at the celebrity attached to that deity. And it's
Mhm.
almost like they're making them celebrities, which is weird as well.
Because that's the programming that is part of the matrix. In other words, it's having to look up to individuals. They don't know these individuals, but they see how the system presents them to them. So they're being programmed just by media, just by music and movies and so on and so forth, to look at these individuals in a certain way. There's coding and all that stuff. And I think I've mentioned that excuse me, in the past as well. There's coding in all the media. So, they get you when you're really young, and, kids aren't really kids. If you notice that stories about kids coming in and they know things about a previous expression that they had, or they see things that the density doesn't allow most so-called adults to see, but over a couple years, they squeeze that out of that individual and put them right in other words, train them to be kind of like mindless drones like most people are on the planet. So all these particular deities, they are creations of yin and yang. They're creations of density. All the Buddhas, all the Jesuses, all the Islamic deities and so on and so forth, they're products of the matrix. If you think about it, they're products of, using the word earth, dunya. And maybe some other culture, they'll talk about individuals from outside of the planet or whatever, and so on and so forth. But what was outside of this planet was a dense grid that was created as well, just to support the system, support their jargon, support their so-called belief systems that they want the food to believe in. So they say, well, what do I believe in? That's a good question. First thing you have to understand, even to start to move in the right direction and not looking so intensely at this individual or that mythical individual or that mythical or mystical individual to save you. Realize you live in the sea of lies. These entities, these deities have been around for, in the matrix, for thousands of years. The matrix is still a shithole. You can pray as hard as you want. And then you're still, I feel a little good. Open your eyes, boop, look around. Everything is a dump. Everything's full of crap. But they try to convince you that, no, it doesn't smell quite as bad here as it smells over there. You're doing better. Compartmentalization separates you from the whole. I don't care what's going on in the neighbor's yard as long as my yard is cool. They separate you from everything. They separate you from Supreme Universe, which means they separate you from yourself. And they literally have done that through fragmentation. There are individuals that you have seen probably that something familiar about them, but you can't put a finger on it. You're probably looking at a fragment of yourself walking around in an avatar, along with all the other attachments, of course. But that dominant fragment that they're feeding off of is just a fragment of yourself. Sometimes you run into individuals that you've never seen before, but you have this kind of like, you jive with them, you have this kind of connection to them. They're not necessarily fragments of yourself, they're just fragments of someone else that you've experienced an expression with in a previous expression. Now, trying to figure out what's going on in the matrix with the mindset that people have, it'll never work. Because you don't realize, you're not realizing or in denial that you can't think beyond linear thought. And also, if there's some part of your higher consciousness that tries to like break the chains, guess what? You got so many attachments in there, they'll just dog pound the shit out of you. Lock them back up. Say, quit trying to get out. And a lot of times they're like, oh, I do it again, but I'm so winded. So realize that your existence is one of dwindling consciousness, dwindling energy. Because eventually, as I said in the past, everyone was supposed to end up in the black ooze field where you're just totally tapped out. But you exist, but you can't do anything. You're just laying there. And those who are also confused and work for density will come and they'll just walk on your face and just look down at you and make fun of you and so on and so forth. This is very much how the system works. You've had individuals, probably if you've ever worked at certain companies or corporations or business or something, and there's a person who if you could say, work their way up to being a supervisor or a head of a situation, and maybe they have a falling out with the Satanists that supported them. All of a sudden, they get everything stripped away from them. And they say, all the little grunts that they were browbeating and looking down on and, spitting on their heads are down. Oh, now you're with us. Welcome to the party. It's all basically a shit show. And it's time for the shit show to end. But thanks for clarifying, Nelly, your question. I hope that was clear. If there's anything part of it that you want me to elaborate on, just let me know.
No, that was great. Thank you, Chief, for answering the question.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay.
502, just to let you know.
Okay, we can go for another question.
Well, around denial, what are the signs of being in denial?
Oh, okay, so as I was talking about being in denial, it's kind of hard to tell when you're in denial a lot of times because you're denying that you are in denial. So a lot of times, if someone literally gives you some information that can be really followed through on. Let's, as far as like denial, let's use something that's very simple. They like their scenarios, they like their stories, and so on, where the whole joke of romance and relationship comes into play. So, say the husband is cheating on the wife. He's told the wife that I love you forever. We'll be together forever. All this stuff. You and me, baby. And there's a part of her that, will deny that there's some part of its characteristics that just doesn't seem to follow it, but they want to believe it so bad. So they deny, in other words, the signs. They deny that the signs that this person, male or female, is not really on the up and up about who they are. So let's say this woman, the husband, he starts stepping out with other women, and then somebody sees him, a friend of hers or something, or a family member. So your husband, he's stepping out with me now. She said, oh, he would never do that. He said, well, well, do you have proof? And sometimes they can say, okay, I'll, if I catch him, I'm going to take a picture. And that's why it's kind of like a double-edged sword for density. Cell phones, cameras, and things like that. They use it to their, they were using it to their advantage, but also it can bite certain individuals in the butt. But even with that, they'll bring up the picture, and I've read these stories too, to the person. This is your husband with this person. Oh, she might just be a co-worker. I don't think that they're having a relationship. So beyond them giving him a video, a porn video of him and that individual in action, they will deny because they don't want their very fragile world that they believe in to just totally crumble around them because they've invested so much in it. So denial a lot of times have to do with how much you invest in something. So individuals who are invested in certain religious beliefs, and then they find there's something that challenges that, they'll just turn their back. No, that's not real because I don't want to believe it's real. So denial takes a lot of, it takes a lot of different forms. But primarily, it's all designed to just keep you running around in the chicken coop, running in the rut, staying in the hamster wheel, or whatever terms you want to use for being in the matrix. So how do you go against denial? One, believe that anything is possible, just about. That it's not impossible that someone that you like to be doing something that the system considers to be not cool. The system creates, romance, relationship, loyalty, and all that. And then they also create debauchery, cheating, all of that stuff. Because after all, you know, they can't feed off of nice stuff. They can't feed off of you having a nice wife with nice kids and so on and so forth. They have to have that drama. They have to have that essence. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up for the first one. I've got a feeling that the next form is going to be flow a lot smoother than this one did from the start. But before I sign off, I give anyone a chance to ask me any questions having to do with any of the questions that I answered today or attempted to answer. And if not, I will see you on the next forum. Anyone? Okay, then. Thank you. And before I sign off, I'm going to contain all of you. A little extra. Containing you, containing your space. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for showing up for the first forum in a long while. Take care.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Thank
you, Chief.
you.
You're welcome. Goodbye. Okay.